everyone, welcome to Get Loose, Geekout. Don't forget to like and subscribe as we chew through our topic of the week every week, 3 days a week. So join me, James, Mike and our good friend Alan as we chew through our chosen geek topic of the week. Don't forget also to find our main podcast, and you can see where you can find it right here. Welcome to episode 2 of our wrestling show, I suppose. Hi, I'm James.
Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Alan.
That's Alan. So last time we spoke about how we got into wrestling back in the day. We're going to talk about on this episode our era-defining moments for us personally, ones that stick in the mind the most. And like I said on the last video, if you haven't seen these, go back and have a look, because I would imagine that the 3 of these will be defining moments for a generation of people that were watching wrestling at the time. So yeah, go and find them. Alan, let's go with yours first.
Yeah. So mine isn't so much, I suppose, a generation-defining moment for people. It's more of a...
making me a liar.
Yeah. It's defining for me. It's what sticks out for me. And that would be a WWF live event at Exeter in 1993 that I attended.
Wow, that's pretty niche.
Wow.
Very niche. Very niche. It was about a week after WrestleMania 9. Not a brilliant WrestleMania. The one at Caesar's Palace.
Oh, you see, I quite like that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool setting, open air and everything like that. It was great. But yeah, my one and only wrestling event that I've attended, WWF wrestling event that I've attended, and it had wrestlers from WrestleMania 9 attending. I don't really remember a lot of the matches. What I remember is going to a merchandise stall and buying crap loads of Bret Hitman Hart gear, sunglasses, intercontinental belt, all that sort of stuff. And I suppose like the one match I really do remember is Mr. Perfect defeating Lex Luger. The old metal plate arm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I suppose it's just a very sort of like personal sort of thing that I remember, and being in a crowd, actually watching like people that I watched on TV, like my sort of heroes in the flesh. Yeah, it's sort of like made it feel a bit more real, if you could say that.
I think when you do go to a live event, I've been to several. In my 20s, I had money to burn, and we'd go. I went to Birmingham, I went to Newcastle, I went everywhere. Literally, I could go, and I was there for the Insurrection pay-per-view.
Oh wow!
Nice.
That was cool, and you could actually see me on camera. I can't remember the timestamp now, but I was way back. You do remember, and the thing I was glad about there is I got to see some of the people that I grew up with. Like Undertaker was there. I've seen the Undertaker live. That was a big thing for me. I think Ric Flair was there. HBK, proper ticking off the lists of some of the greats. I shook hands with John Cena at one show where I was really close. Big Show got a pat on the back as he was walking past, and like TV does not do that man justice. It's like, holy shit. And being 6'3" and 3 foot wide, it shouldn't be that much intimidating, but it's like, holy crap, that is a big show. So yeah, I can see why that moment would stick in your mind, because I know that a lot of people don't like it being called sports entertainment, but That's what it is. A soap opera.
Yeah.
just more interesting than Coronation Street or EastEnders.
Yeah.
You know, it is a soap opera. None of us think that it's real. You know,
I've got to say, to be honest, back when I went to that in '93, I did think it was real. But I was fine. So
yeah, but the thing is, back in the day, the lines weren't blurred. In this era, you did think it was real, and you did think that Jake the Snake had set a snake on Macho Man Randy Savage, and you know there was venom going into him. Actually, the snake did bite Randy Savage, which wasn't supposed to happen, but you know there was no, it was devenomized. But you thought, oh no, he's going to die, and you know you had that emotional investment, which is where I think that the detachment comes these days.
Evidently, you've never been hit on the back with a kendo stick, my friend.
No, but I'm not saying that it's not real. But do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I have been hit on the back with a steel chair.
Yeah.
When we were just fucking about. I know, if you don't know, viewers, Mike used to be a sports entertainer. I mean, don't get me wrong, he wasn't going for the WWE Championship.
God no. No, it was, you know, I trained for a couple of years. It was a bit of fun. You know, it was something I always wanted to do. So I went down to a local training school, trained for some time and whatnot. But yeah, getting hit with some of the things, you don't expect it to hurt half as much as what it does. Especially if a table doesn't break.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's the thing. I think that's the bit that people forget about, is that, you know, not everything does go right every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching Dark Side of the Ring earlier, and they were talking about the Brawl for All, which is a whole nother story. But they were talking about Droz, and you know, he took a power bomb. And how many power bombs have you seen delivered over the years that were no problem at all? He took his power bomb, paralyzed. 20 years later, still paralyzed, just because he landed slightly badly. And that's the risk that these people do take. So even if you don't like it, you have to respect it.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately a lot of people don't, because they just it's just wrestling.
Yeah. They're just a load of, I suppose.
What's the thing?
Men.
It's breathing at the wrong time as well. That can really set you back. Just taking a scoop slam. If you breathe in when you land, you're done for like the next 5 minutes whilst your ribs try and reiterate your lungs together and like, okay, I can breathe again.
The thing is, even just like hitting the ropes wrong.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much technique and stuff to it that people just don't understand. And, you know, massive respect to anybody that's ever had a match anywhere, because, you know, it's not as easy as it looks. People say, oh, you know, it's just like dancing. Well, yes, but no. Anyway, Mike, what's your moment?
My moment is Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Not by any means like the greatest of Hulk Hogan's matches out there, but just the psychology behind it. Like, this guy's massive. You know, there's no way anyone should be able to do anything to this guy. Like, maybe a drop kick might set him back a little bit, but to actually pick him up, slam him, and get the win was amazing for just everyone, I think, who was watching, and anyone who goes back to watch it now sort of goes, because it's full strength. Like, Andre the Giant at this point, he didn't have most of the upper lift about him to be able to get up and help Hogan lift him. So that's all Hogan. And I think that's the point where he really became Mr. WrestleMania.
The only cooperation there was not to dead weight him.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? That's because if anybody's ever tried to lift somebody up, if you try and lift somebody up that doesn't want to be lifted up, and then somebody who's cooperating with you, it is a very, very different story.
Yeah. But yeah, the big thing about those lifts is that you've got some sort of jump in you as the recipient of taking the hit. You've got to be able to sort of give some sort of lift to the person who's lifting you, and to not be able to do that, but still that other person pick you up, especially when you're over 7 foot and over 400 pounds. just to sort of go like that. Granted, he wasn't high, but he still held him there and slammed him into the ground. Sorry, the ring, not the ground. You know, that's a feat in itself. So yeah, massive respect for Hulk Hogan now. I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I mean that is a defining moment for the industry. I think obviously WWE as it is now, they still show that, and the fact that they kind of went back to that storyline with Lex Luger and Yokozuna later on, years later, which was interesting because that's when Hogan had dipped off to WCW, and they tried to repackage Lex Luger as the next Hulk Hogan. And
yeah, I think that was a big thing for Vince at the time, really, wasn't it? Especially like mid-90s, like when people did start to jump ship and things were starting to go downhill. He's like, well, I've still got people. I'll repackage them as these new people, but it just did not go over well at all with anyone.
To put it in perspective for people, if they've only watched it recently, it was like Roman Reigns. He was ramming it. Lex Luger was rammed down your throat as he is your next hero.
Yeah.
And people didn't want it. And the difference with Lex Luger and Roman Reigns is that Roman Reigns has developed and he's moved on. And, you know, he's a good sports entertainer, good pro wrestler, you know, good performer. Lex Luger didn't have the mic skills. He didn't have that personality. He was not winning anybody over.
Yeah.
And even when they put them on, I mean, you don't get more American than this, right? Lex Luger arrives in a helicopter, you know, on the deck of for the aircraft carrier. I think it was the Intrepid, taking on this evil sumo wrestler. And he slammed him. But again, that was an incredible feat of strength. Because Yokozuna was probably heavier than Andre was.
I would imagine so. That he was a beast.
Yeah,
not like a beast, but like a beast.
Yeah, you know, even like I'm a big lad, but Yokozuna's thighs were as wide as my chest. He was a big lad. So yeah, for the WWE to go back to revisit that sort of storyline to try and make Lex Luger shows how effective it was with Hulk Hogan in the early days.
Yeah. Going back, talking about Lex Luger, I think, especially not so much now, but back in the day with WWE, Vince really liked his sort of like big, muscly wrestlers, and that's who he tended to push rather than the actual athletic, smaller guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all about bodybuilder type physique.
Yeah. Lex Luger was definitely that type.
It's still that time now, that's the thing.
Federation, Vince did. And when Luger came in, there was something contractual, and he was actually signed to this bodybuilding federation. So they could get him in, and they started their own nutrition bars and all sorts of stuff. So Vince has always had crazy ideas. But yeah, you're right. It was all about what they look like.
It's still very much an archetype now, you know.
It's because it's the same man.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think the introduction of Lex Luger being, you know, this bodybuilder was the time that Vince started his own journey on that as well, because it was a few years later when Vince stepped in the ring, and the size difference between him back then to when he stepped in the ring was completely different. Yeah,
Vince always wanted to be a wrestler, but you know, because of his dad owning the company, ended up being an announcer and working behind the scenes, and he went through that whole era where he had that and the steroid trial and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But fair play to him. He's still more jacked up than any of us, and he's 70.
Yeah. Still works out, and he's still a bit of a specimen, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as much as I don't agree with everything he does now, and I didn't agree with everything he did then, but you can't, deny the contribution to the business.
Oh, no.
And some of the genius that has been Vincent Kennedy McMahon over the years.
Oh yeah, he's always taken down his biggest competitors.
Yeah, one way or another.
Yeah.
Does he have some harebrained schemes? Absolutely. XFL. Twice. But yeah, you have to respect the man. My defining moment is not even a match. It was one of those brilliant segments that they used to do back in the day where everybody had like a talk show segment. So the Undertaker and Paul Bearer would have the funeral parlor, and Roddy Piper had Piper's Pit, and Brutus, the fucking barber beefcake, had the barber shop. Now, I was never a big fan of Brutus Beefcake, to be fair. Never captured my imagination. I never really got the gimmick. But on this particular episode, they had the Rockers on. And, you know, the Rockers had been having some problems, and they were like, oh, are they going to split up? Aren't they going to split up? And they went through the talky bit, and yeah, they made up, and then they hugged. And then as they stepped away, just a millisecond before it happened, you got wind of what was going to happen. And then Shawn Michaels absolutely kicked Marty Jannetty's face off in like one of the best sweet chin music you'll ever see. And then rammed his head through the plate glass window of the barbershop.
Yeah.
And to me, at the time, I was young enough to still believe it all. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's just happened. They're like, oh, but they're my like favorite tag team. And, you know, as I said in the last episode, you know, the Rockers are one of the first things I ever saw of wrestling. And for them to break up, it was heart-wrenching for me. And then just Shawn Michaels just went on this incredible transformation as this arrogant, you know, little twat who, you know, you look at him and you'd think, oh, he's nothing really. And then like just the performance level of that man was just unbelievable. And he carried it off so well with Sensational Sherry managing him. And, you know, the fact that to this day, he's still got the same theme music. You know, we're talking 30 years now.
Yeah.
There's not many that carry that off.
No.
And yeah, it just started the really, no pun intended, well, pun intended, really kick-started Shawn Michaels' career. And one of the greatest of all time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that memory absolutely sticks in my mind over a lot of matches and stuff, just because of what it meant to me personally and what it meant for the business moving forwards, because that was the start of Vince seeing actually you might not need to be 7 foot tall and built like a brick shithouse to be able to perform on the level that they want. It really gave those smaller guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels the chance to go out and perform.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. But I think Bret Hart at the time, even then in '92, he was still one of the biggest faces of wrestling.
Yeah, they were trying to do that transition because Vince was aware that Hulk Hogan was getting old.
Well, yeah.
He wanted to hand it over, and like I say, things like that Shawn Michaels thing just like solidified that the smaller guys could do it, which gave Bret that chance to break out from the Intercontinental Championship scene, which was all that, yeah, we're going to put them in, see how they get on, and then they might move up to the next level. And at that point, that is where Shawn Michaels took over that sort of position from Bret Hart. And he was Intercontinental Champion loads of times and had great feuds with Razor Ramon and, you know, people like that. And that allowed Bret to move up again, to level up.
Yeah.
And you know, back in the day, it was very much you would either come in and you'd be part of the Battle Royals and this, that, and the other. And you might get a random Intercontinental shot. And then if you know, capture the imagination, you might get a run with the belt. Or you'd come in as a tag team and you'd pay your dues and you'd be in the tag team. Then you'd split away, get your Intercontinental, you know, shot, and then you would move up again. And it was very much tiers of how you would level up.
Yeah, I always felt like it was you saw the same thing when like tag teams split up. One of them would always hit the mark and be pushed, and the other one would just sort of they'd have a consistent career, but they'd never hit above that mid card. Like
But as they
the
say,
Steiner brothers.
They'd be the Marty Jannetty.
Mm.
It seems like tag teams were almost like the testing ground really to see who would work as a solo sort of a wrestler. And then once Vince decides that's the man for me, he would split the tag up.
Yeah, I do mourn the loss of the tag team division.
Yeah, which is a shame because I mean to go that's your testing ground for who you want or whatever and split. It's a shame because you've got to have that dynamic with that other person to make the tag team work anyway. Like the Road Warriors, the Steiner brothers, like we've said, the Rockers, the Quebecers. They all had a character dynamic between the two, but you never saw ones like Road Warriors like split.
Well, you did when Hawk died. Animal had a solo run, and it was shocking.
Yeah.
So much so that they put him back in a tag team with Heidenreich.
Yes, we'll not mention Heidenreich or that tag team
ever again. I think the last one of that ilk was Edge and Christian.
Yeah.
I don't know, because you still got the Hardy Boys, although they are mainly solo competitors these days.
It was the same time, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. The Dudley Boys still compete together.
Yeah, I mean, but they never really had that split. What I mean is you never had that moment. You don't get it very often where one goes on to superstardom now.
Yeah, okay.
Like they used to. You'd have 10 tag teams and, some of them would always be tag teams and some of them you knew were going to split up and somebody would be pushed to the moon. And I think, sort of that era, Edge and Christian were the last ones for me, I think. But they did actually make an appearance in this era, so it's not completely out of context. They made an appearance at the Royal Rumble. I think it was 1994 Royal Rumble, and it was they opened the doors for the competitors to come out. It might be Royal, it might have been King of the Ring. It was 1994 anyway. A very young Matt and Jeff paying their dues.
That's the thing. There's a big thing with that company, with any company really, is you pay your dues first, doing camera work, ring announcement, backstage work.
Setting the ring up, very much so, learning that work ethic, that it's not just about the match, it's about the whole presentation. And that era was, well known for that. It was well known for what they call hazing, where the older guys would test the younger guys, let's say, in not a very nice way. It wouldn't fly today. Oh, no. And the older guys would let you know if you'd done something wrong, but they'd let you know in the ring. And suddenly a work would become a shoot, and you were getting some serious pain given to you. I think the Dudley Boys mentioned their first match. I can't remember who it was against, but they went, I think it might have been the APA, and the APA absolutely gave them some receipts, as they call it. Mm-hmm. Some stiff shots. And the Dudley Boys just went backstage, said, thank you very much for the match, done, and move on. And then that was part of their rite of passage. And that's how the business was for the longest time. But especially in this era with the territories, etc., that was very much you'd start at the bottom. Like Paul Heyman started in this era. He was a photographer. He started off taking pictures and moved up through the ranks to being one of the best managers, stroke advocates, stroke commentators, stroke everything he's done, in the history of the business. But that's how it started. You start off doing. Jim Ross started off doing advertising, and he was vice president of the company of WWE or F or both at the time, and still involved to this day. So people from that era that learned those lessons are still going now. So this era, like, whereas it wasn't always necessarily the best for content match-wise, it did produce a legacy for the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will talk about in our next episode where we count down our top 5 performers from this era. Now, I do think that we will get some repeat offenders on this list, but I think there will be 3 different lists. So tune in next time to find out our top 5 from this era. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and find the main show, Get Loose, with Mike and myself, right here.